Doom has one of the most interesting development histories I've heard of. I enjoy the history of how the game was developed, the graphics, sound, and other elements more than the actual game itself. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the game a lot as well. Today we're going to be taking a look at the most influential FPS game of the time's earliest known build and analyzing it. I used the Doom wiki to get a lot of information about this build and its history. If you want more in-depth information, you can head there. I'll put a link in the description. I got this build from the Doom World id Games archive, which is linked at the bottom of the Doom wiki pages. And I don't have a computer that can run DOS, so that means I'll have to emulate it. And I'll be using DOSBox Staging, which is a modern continuation of DOSBox. If mine looks a little different than yours, it's because I turned the CRT shaders off. Now we can start looking at this pre-release. This is the first known development version 0.2, which was released to testers on February 4th, 1993. This version was only in development for 2 months when released to testers. The archive contains an exe and a WAD file with some information about the archive and version. I opened the WAD file with Slade, and there's some unused sprites and textures not in the full release, but nothing else too out of the ordinary. The first thing you'll notice booting it up is the intro screen. There's an old Doom logo, and the game was most likely going to be called Doom: Evil Unleashed. I'm glad they didn't call it that though. Also, fancy tech demo text. And at the time they clearly didn't want anyone having their hands on this outside of testers. Also, 2 id logos for symmetry. Once you're in the game, there's quite a lot going on. The HUD is way more detailed with a lot more elements and looks as if it was designed to be the inside of a helmet. The HUD doesn't do anything, it's just for looks in this version. There's a mini-map on the top right, and it's the wrong map. There's weapons and ammo stats on the side. I don't recognize most of the names other than the pistol, shotgun, and BFG. You can't actually switch weapons though, you can only use the shotgun. There's some messages on the bottom. On the left you can see a message from Shin, I'm assuming is how you say it, who is most likely a reference to Lorelei Shin, who is meant to be a playable character. Captain's Hand, Sandwich, and Heart of Lothar are meant to be items like keys. On the left there are health stats. H means health, A means armor. I don't know what the S means, maybe shield? I don't think this is Fortnite though. On the top left there's extra weapon info like damage, rounds per second, max ammo, and random. Of course the game itself is rendered in the middle of all this. In the actual game, the first thing I noticed is the lack of sound. It's kind of odd without any action music or weapon and monster sounds. I made sure there's no sounds as well, it's not just the emulator not working. I checked in Slade and there's only one sound called areas which doesn't play. My first instinct is to start moving and looking around. Of course WASD doesn't work, but all the movement lines from the full release are here, including arrow keys, mouse move, and the number pad. You can strafe with Alt or right click, and you can use the mouse to look as well. There's no sprinting. Also, there's no using with space because there's nothing to use. The movement feels like it has more friction and maybe a bit slower. I tried to go up and shoot the monster, but nothing happened. The only thing that happens is a firing animation, and firing also emits some light. There's no ammo system, so nothing happens with that. Also, this is a different textured shotgun. I like the one in the full release better though. The monsters don't do anything, they're just standing around chilling. They have idle animations and you can move around and see their sprites from different angles. The imp has a texture difference where its eyes and mouth are yellow. The rest of them don't have any meaningful or noticeable changes from the full release. Sometimes running into monsters crashes the game with an error, integer divided by 0. This has happened while not running into monsters, but seems to happen more often when you do. There's no menus, so you just hit escape to close the game. Now let's talk about the map itself. If you saw this, you would think it's a Doom map. There aren't any items or weapons on the ground to pick up, and it can't render floors on different elevations, so the ground is just flat like Wolfenstein. In ways, it's different from Wolfenstein, like the angled walls instead of 90-degree corners everywhere. Also, it can actually render textures on the floor. You can change the textures on the walls with 3 and 4, some even increase the ceiling height. The lowest height is shorter than the monsters and they render on top and it looks weird. Some of these textures are just game textures, but most of them are development textures to measure units or just for general use when creating maps. You can change the ceiling textures with 5 and 6 and the floor textures with 7 and 8, though there aren't any development textures for the floor and ceiling. There are some textures that wouldn't be used for the game or development included in this version. I guess Jules, which is Adrian Carmack's nickname, and Tom Hall had some beef at the time, and these textures resulted from it. You can change the ambient brightness with 9 and 0. This lighting is really cool for the time. It can get really dark too, this could even be a horror game. That's everything interesting I found about the first known pre-release. Originally, I was going to make this video about every pre-release, but decided against it because I'm still new to making videos, and this is the longest one I've scripted. Also, the next pre-releases are quite big compared to this one, so they'll take more time. If this does well, I'll make videos about the next pre-releases, but if I'm being honest, I'll probably make them anyway, whether they do good or not. If you find something interesting, you can leave a comment, and thanks for watching.